Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our third of our webinar series, technically our fourth, because we did a back-to-back twofer on Tuesday. But this one is solely dedicated on Google Classroom. So one of my favorite things to talk about, and I'm excited to jump in and demonstrate a lot of different ways to use Google tools and the direct integration with Google Classroom and Noteflight Learn. So housekeeping, always starting with housekeeping. If you have any questions, please use the question panel to ask questions. We do have great team members, Danielle and Amber from Noteflight, that are on. So they will be able to answer any questions you have as you go. And they'll be able to funnel questions to me if I need to answer them as we go. So just so you know, ask questions, get answers as you go. We're going to go through a little bit of overall Noteflight Learn integration today. But in general, we did a lot of that on our Noteflight Learn webinar Tuesday. So today's going to be very specific to Google Classroom. So with that, let's jump right in here. So Noteflight Learn is a dedicated platform where you can compose, record, assess, and share music with students on any device. The direct integration with Google Classroom allows three types of integration, right? It allows single sign-on. Your students are directly sign on to their Noteflight Learn site using their Google authentication. You can create, as a teacher, you can create assignments in Noteflight to post directly to your Google Classroom. And also, Noteflight allows you to pull in your Google classes as classes right in Noteflight Learn, so you'll have those organizational structures to share works with your students and be able to communicate with them in Noteflight or in Google Classroom. Now, the way this integration works is that Noteflight, you have your own Noteflight site, but all the member management and classes and assignments come from Google Classroom. So I would suggest in keeping Google Classroom as your home base and using assignments to launch students in and out of Noteflight. The great thing about the Google Classroom integration is students can just go to the Noteflight site, log in with Google anytime, and play and enjoy creating and performing music anytime they want. But for a structural standpoint, it's nice to be able to use Classroom to still be that home base for students, right? Now, as far as student privacy, remember that Noteflight Learn is fully COPPA compliant. We don't ever see any of the student logins. So your students log in with Google, like we don't see their emails, we don't see ever passwords. Google takes care of all that and just says, hey, let little Johnny in. And we say, we trust you, Google, because you've connected your site. So as far as connecting, I'll show a little bit about what the integration looks like. I know a lot of folks on this webinar are already integrated, and some might want to see how it works from the beginning. So I'll try to differentiate as much as possible here. So let me start and just do a quick demo of what it looks like to manage Noteflight. So I just created a new site actually for this presentation. And when you integrate your site with Noteflight, you will create a site and you actually manage classes in Google. So one of the great things about Noteflight is once you create your Noteflight site, and I'm using my friend Teacher4. Teacher4 is my Google identity here. So right here under Add Google Classes, Noteflight is calling Google saying, hey Google, what's up? Can you give me all the classes for this teacher? Now I've already authenticated. There's a step before this. And Noteflight will list all the courses in your Google Classroom. And you can go in and actually select which classes you want to add to your Noteflight Learn site. And I'm just going to kind of select here. You can see there's some classes already selected. You can always remove them. And so Noteflight's going to count all this up now and say you can have X amount of users. And you just hit update. And now Noteflight's going to go out to Google and it's going to confirm that it's going to be adding these classes to your Noteflight site. So this is how you manage integration. It's really simple. And if you happen to add a student or remove a student from a Google class, you can go straight to the sync step. And what the sync step doing is comparing what you have in your Google Classroom to what Noteflight is and syncing up the members. If you remove the student from Google Classroom, you do need to sync Noteflight. Noteflight's not going to do that automatically. And Noteflight could, but the reason is that we want to make sure that if you actually want to remove a student to Noteflight, that you make sure you get a confirmation, because we don't want to have a situation where a student has a bunch of Noteflight scores that they want to have access to, and you didn't mean to remove access from Noteflight. So all you do is manage your Google Classrooms like you normally would, and let Noteflight sync up and pull in all the members as you go. So while that's syncing up, it's going to come up and tell me to add two, because I just put this together. I want to show you a little bit about what Noteflight Learn can do now, because of course with the integration of SoundCheck, we have some really exciting new features. So I just want to start. I wanted to come right out of the gate and say, let's try something that is not possible on any other platform. I'm going to go here and I'm going to compose a piece of music, and let's call it GC and Noteflight and SoundCheck, and how do you do the other symbol? I think that's probably good enough. So I'm going to build a title here, and let's just make a little quick example. And I'm just going to go through something that's pretty easy to show. So I want to do an arpeggio, get some notes in. We'll do a little 1/5 ditty here. So I'm just repeating notes, and I'm going to make this a half note, make this here. Perfect. So actually, I'm going to do a quick update here so I can make sure you can hear what I'm playing here. Perfect. So now you should be able to hear this. We'll go back to the beginning. So simple example. Now this could be composition. Now I'm going to go into SoundCheck, and we're going to create a SoundCheck score, and we're going to say you have to perform this with a 91%, and we're going to make the difficulty hard, and you have 2 tries to get it right? And we're going to create a SoundCheck score right out of it. So this is one of the great things about, we're going to talk about composition today and performance, but you can compose in Noteflight. And I'm going to give some examples in Google Classroom about how you can actually compose, create lessons that are multi-stepped using a combination of topics and questions in Google. And I have this over here. But notice I took that in Noteflight, immediately created the SoundCheck score, and now I'm going to assign this in Google Classroom. And I'm going to give this to, I'll give it to my intermediate band. It's probably a little easy. And I'm going to call it, we'll just give it the same name here, GC and Noteflight and SC. And all this is happening on the spot right in front of you. So now here are the settings I gave the SoundCheck score I created. When you go to assign this to your students, you can make this easier. So if you created a SoundCheck for yourself and you made the settings one thing, but you want to like go a little easier and maybe give your students 3 attempts, you can change the level of the assessment when you create that assignment, right? And I'm going to create that assignment right there. That assignment is going to show up in my Google Classroom. And let me go over here to my intermediate band. And it already says teacher post a new assignment. So we can go in, and actually I'm going to go back probably just to the classwork stream. So here's the new assignment right here, and students can launch into it. So now let me go over here, and I'm going to go in as my favorite student, by the way, which is student number 354 in our 1,000 student test site. So now I'm student 354, got it, thanks Google. I'm going to open my little assignment, right? And the student can go in and complete this, right? So again, it's going to ask me to log in, sign in with Google. It's probably going to ask me to authenticate. Right, I need to go enable this for this user. So this particular student, because I'm doing this for the first time, does not have access to SoundCheck. So let me just show you how that works really quick. I'm going to go to Manage Site, Manage Add-ons. I'm going to add SoundCheck. I'm just going to add it for everybody. Everyone gets sound check. You get, I feel like the Oprah show. You get some sound check, and you get some sound check, and you get some sound check. So let me see if this student can go in now. And now the student, oh, I need to re-log in. So I'll double check this in a second, but student will go in and open up sound check and have access to assess, do their performance, and they'll be able to turn it in right to the teacher, right? You can actually see that the student has already been able to open it. So I can go in and see that it did work. Student 354 has opened this as a teacher, and you can see that student's work. And that student can go in, sing or play their performance. You as a teacher can hear their feedback and hear everything they need to do. So that's a really awesome example of something that Noteflight's able to do now. And whether it's composition or assessment, it can be directly integrated with your Google Classroom site. So now I wanted to show exactly how everything's put together. Now let's go back and talk a little bit more about the integration and how everything is structured. So I'm going to go into this community area, and this is where students can share public scores, and this is where all of your classes show up, right? So these are in Noteflight, we have groups, but these mirror what's in Google Classroom automatically. So I'm going to go back to my classes in Google and see that the classes I selected, if you remember that selection step where we were going to bring in the different classes, those have been brought in. And you see all the members in here. Now, the other thing I'll make sure you know is that if a lot of times a student may be in multiple classes, they only count one time in your Noteflight site. So they don't count again. You'll have a lot of multiple students, but Noteflight knows it's the same student having access. So these groups are already set up. Now you can actually assign the content libraries and sound check to an individual group as well. And this is also something that we've added very recently. So let's say I am a teacher who wants to use assessment with my band class, right? So I can go into my community and I can open up advanced band, and I can go in and say, I want to manage all the add-ons. Here's all of these students. Well, I need to add sound check. So let me select all of these students, hit OK, and I'm going to add sound check for all of the students in advanced band. And notice it automatically added all of that, right? And again, it looks like my my friendly student 354 might have got access that time. Aha. So automatically in, I'm going to go ahead and go through here and do this really quickly. Just so it's authenticated. Noteflight is absolutely verified, but I'm using a test environment, so I have to go through this extra step. So that is not a real error message. So now I'm the student, and this is what I wanted to show you earlier. As soon as this student does their assessment, they can actually turn it in direct to Google. So in the effort of doing a full demonstration, I'm going to play through this little example. Let me see if I got my tracks. I'm going to have the metronome instead of follow me, and I'm going to hit record. Let me check my tempo. Let's try this real fast. See what happens. I'm going to change the tempo up a little bit. It's not real fast, but we'll see what happens. All right, so we do want to allow my mic. You're actually hearing the metro. I know I played B flat. I did it on purpose. So now I have 2 attempts remaining. I can retry this automatically, or I can go ahead and save my attempt. I say always hit save, right? So it clearly heard I played the B flat, right? It heard a wrong note here, and it heard me. Remember, I slowed down intentionally at the end, and this line dips because it recognizes. So I got most of the stars. I did cut off. I did stop the recording early, so it didn't give me full credit for finishing, but this is a pretty good score. And of course, I have my recording here that we can always listen to. So I can play back and listen to my. And I can listen to me. My trumpet's very loud, peeking out my mic. Notice you can click and in the staff and hear the staff playback, or you can click down here and hear the recording playback. So you can actually toggle in between and listen to the demo audio of what it was supposed to sound like versus what that recording was, right? You can also go into tracks and choose to hear match recording or metronome. So if I'm a student, I'm happy with this, I've saved it, the student just hits turn in and they turn it in right to Google. And as a teacher, you will get, let me go back to my, my famous teacher 4 in Google. If I go back to this assignment, right, I will see that, it'll refresh here in a second, that there should be a student turned in, and there it is, it just refreshed. So now my favorite student, number 354, has turned in their Noteflight assignment, and I can go in as a teacher, click on this, I can see their assessment, I can hear exactly what the student did, I can see the rating they received, I can see the feedback that SoundCheck gave them, right? I can see the colors of the stars, I can listen to their recording, give them feedback, and as long as I'm happy with it, then I can go in, let me add a point value to this real quick, update, and now I can just give that student a grade, right? So all of your students that turn this in will show up, and I can say, well, I can give them straight up the grade they got here, this 91, or maybe you have a rubric that says as long as you reach the 70 or higher, you can get an A. So maybe I'll give them a 95 or something like that. Or maybe because they missed 2 B flats and I'm not happy about it, I'll give them an 85 and say, you know what, so you can give any grade you want here, but you have all of this feedback. Now, the other thing that's really valuable is we want students to be able to share their feedback too, right? So there's other ways of doing this where students can actually create their own SoundCheck files or Noteflight files and share it with the group. So that was whole demo. I composed a Noteflight, made an assessment out of it, assigned it to a student, student opened it, student completed it, they turned it right in, right? And you can do that over and over and over again with Noteflight and Google Classroom. So you can do that with Noteflight scores, and you can do that with SoundCheck scores. Put my trumpet down, and you can just do all sorts of assignments. So now I want to go in and talk about some of the libraries that Noteflight has. So let's talk about a composition exercise, right? Let's say that we're going in Noteflight and we're trying to work on music theory. I'm going to pull up, and this is all in the included Noteflight library. So I'm just going to pull up degrees of a major scale. So here's the basic assignment, right? So now what they're trying to do is have you go in and relabel some of these pitches, right? So you can take this, or we can even adapt this for our needs. I'm going to actually go in and find another one. You can go in and look at different options here. I want to do melodic minor scales. That actually sounds like more fun. So here's an example of harmonic minor, or melodic minor, descending up and down. So now the idea is to write all of these. So let me check out a copy of this. And there's already some instructions here, right? So we can go in, let me just fix this real quick. Here's some instructions with hold up. You can edit these and give different instructions if you want. But let's say we're going to assign this to students, right? And we want them to write F sharp, E, B flat, and G. So we can go in and have them write these. So you'll go in score details. Again, you'll create Google assignment. And in here, you'll go in, select your class. So maybe I'll just keep going on intermediate band here, melodic minor. Here it is. Automatically creates a copy for every student. We'll make it due tomorrow, and we'll save this, right? Now, one thing that we could do here is add steps and have students, after they turn it in, they have to share their work with others, right? So I want to talk about how you can use Noteflight to extend upon and create multiple lessons that extend beyond what the student composed. So of course, I want to go back and just show in my intermediate band. Stream was updated. So here's my melodic minor exercise, and my student's going to complete it, right? So let me actually go back into my student here, and my student here should see melodic minor. So I'm going to log in again. So now student has their own copy. So So let's say they go in and do this. So let me go ahead and do just one of these real quick. Let me just add these and put a here and a B here. Da, 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 and then we're going E sharp. Look at this. How fun is this? Put an F sharp, right? And then I'm going to repeat this F sharp. Then I'm going to repeat and go down a step, and that is an E natural, and then D, and then we'll come right on back down the scale. Plus for that. Did I get it right? All right, so we can play back. Great, so I'm just going to complete one. I know you didn't sign up for a webinar to watch me do a melodic minor scale exercise. So now the great thing about these is a student turns in their work, they're happy, they're good, I did it, student turns it in, right? One of the things that I always encourage with Noteflight is creating copies of scores and extending beyond the lesson. Now, one thing we do intentionally with Google Classroom is we try to make sure that the version of the score the student completes for the assignment is the version that's turned in, and they can't create new versions or share the version they've turned in, because obviously you don't want students to have the ability to turn something in but also share the same thing with their friends and have their friends edit it. So we want to make sure that when an assignment's involved, what students turn in is theirs. So intentionally, sharing is not allowed of an assignment that's been turned in. But what you can do, and what we highly encourage, is to create a copy, right? To go in the score menu and save a copy. So a student can turn in their assignment, and this is the one the teacher has access to that's turned in. But a student can save a copy of this, right? So it's going to ask you to create a new one. And so here now, and part of your instructions in your Google Classroom assignment can be create a copy of this particular score. And now a student can then go beyond. So maybe they start with just melodic minor scales, but what if from here they compose a second part, right? Let me actually go in and just delete the rest of this to kind of clean it up. So maybe now they need to harmonize it. So we're going to harmonize it with a bassoon, because that sounds fun, right? Add a bassoon part, and maybe they want to put in a harmony part here that has to do with bassoon, and maybe we can just harmonize it with the drone for now. So, or maybe we'll do the fifth here. Let's go down here, and then we'll go back. I'm just going to repeat this. This is not a very creative harmony. Please forgive me. And in fact, we should do something a little more creative here. And I just repeat, bring this back to F sharp. Okay, there we go. So something like that. So again, this could be an extensional harmony. This could be something that a student can record and compose in Noteflight. So as another extension, now a student might be tasked at recording this particular section along with this second harmony. So you see that we did a basic assignment, but there's an extension beyond. Now a student could take this and share it with someone else in the site. So in Noteflight, the students can go in and say, you know what, I'm going to share this with the intermediate band, and I'm going to allow people export my score, or I'm going to let people even like I'm going to make activities. So a student can make an activity template, meaning that other students get their own unique copy of what the student's sharing. So as a student, I could create some version of this, share it out again in Noteflight, and allow others to make their own arrangement of it. So you could have student write a melody, share it, someone else add a bass line, someone else add a second part, and it could just be shared and shared and shared. And then eventually you could even turn it into a sound check score and assess the performance of it, or you could just make it a composition exercise. Totally up to you, right? So the student can share it back out, which I think is a really, really cool feature. Or the student could just say, hey, anyone with the link can view. And these are very, very similar to the Google settings, right? And they can create a view only link, and they can save it and just post this link. Maybe they post it in a question in Google Classroom. So then students have to go in Google and look at the Noteflight score and respond to the student's post in a question topic in Google Classroom. Again, you have comments in Noteflight where you could have students share a Noteflight score with other students and let those students comment. However, and then I'll show you that works. So that works as comment settings. Or if you'd like to keep it all in Google Classroom, you could just have students share their link and post it in a question so that others can see. And I'll just do that real quick. I'll just copy my link. I think I have something set up here. And the student could go in. I have a topic that has a question. So I'll look at different examples here, but here's an assignment submission forum. I like to use these type of things to post anyway, and they can go in and view it. I'm the teacher now, so I'm actually viewing student answers, but they can post their link right in here as an option, right? And that's another option for students to have the ability to immediately post their link, and others can have feedback as you go. Now, the other thing to extend further is Noteflight offers audio recording. So this could be, you've composed this, now let's record this F-sharp melodic minor scale. So I'm going to go into record mode, and here's F-sharp melodic minor. Now in recording, I know we showed this in the last webinar, but I can choose what I want to listen to. So I can say I want to hear the bassoon part while I record, which is probably what I want to do. By default, Noteflight's going to mute the part you're recording. It's this mute selected part while recording button. So generally you don't want to hear the thing you're recording while recording it, but if for some reason you did, like in headphones, want to sing along, you can certainly turn this on. I'll actually go in real quick and just show audio recording so we can see how that works. So you can hear the metronome and you'll hear the same playback. And it will go on, so I can stop my recording. And now I'm a student that has recorded my part. It will show up as student 354, my favorite student, right? We don't have favorites, right? We love them all equally, but 354 is my favorite. And here's my audio recording of that scale. So you can record directly in Noteflight. And of course, if I wanted to create a sound check score of this, I could do the same thing and assess my F-sharp melodic scale. I say this all because one thing that really excites me from a Google Classroom example is Noteflight allows you to create assignments in Google and turn them back in, and that's awesome, right? But we also have the ability to extend further where students can, compose something, share it with the group, share copies, get feedback. And so there's the ability in Noteflight and in Google to collaborate and share access on these links and turn in. So one of the things I really like doing is using forms or docs and creating a really nice project with multiple steps where students can go through a process of learning in this way. And you could use a Google form for a reflection on this, or you could just create a doc that automatically does it. One of the things I like to set up, I'll go in Google Classroom and just, let me just go create a new thing here. So I'm going to create an assignment, and I'm going to compose together. So the way this would work in Google, and of course I can add a file, or I could go in and create a doc, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go in my doc, and I'll give it a title. And I'll actually spell together correctly. That would actually be good. So a lot of times I like to do things in docs where I use a doc to say step 1. And you can actually put a link in here, right? So you can say open this score in Noteflight and compose, and you could copy and paste. Do I still have the link? Yeah, so here's a link of a score. So you could also create the assignment, but also post it here for the student. And then 2, make a copy and share with a partner, right? So you could create these like little steps here and even create reflections and all of that. And you could go on and on and on. Yes, I got it. Google will give me writing suggestions. So you sort of create this checklist as a doc, right? And then, students, what you do is you obviously make a copy for each student. So then you've shared a doc with the process, and it starts with a Noteflight score, allows them to collaborate with giving instructions on how to use multiple Google tools, or be able to share that Noteflight score out and have a composition. Maybe they have to create a sound check out of it with the partner and then turn it in. So what they'll turn in is the doc, but the doc will have, you know, the final student's work. So make a sound check score and get over an 80%. And then in here, paste the URL of the final score. And so sometimes, you know, with any Google integration, you assign a particular score and it goes to students, they turn that thing in, their version of that, and it goes back. And that's great. That's exactly how Noteflight works. But I also want to show that you could use Google tools and other things to make these extended assignments where students can do multiple steps. And one of the tricks I like to do to have them, you know, sometimes they may be turning in something that's very different from what they started with because they've had to share it multiple times. So you could use a doc to do that. You could also use slides and have students put things in. You could even have a form where students fill out like self-reflections and they put the URL of the final product in a Google form. You could certainly use a form for this as well, right? Totally up to you. One of the things I like about Docs is in Google, it does have this make a copy for each student option. Slides does the same. Forms doesn't work that way, and neither does Sites, right? So with a doc or a slide, each student gets their own instruction sheet, and you can even have them like you could add a self-reflection pop here, right? Where they can, my headphones are up. So, and then student would have space to type a self-reflection. So they turn in one doc with all their reflections and steps, and you have links to everything they've completed. So that's just another way to bring it all together in Noteflight. I'll go ahead and assign this so all of my students will get it. But that's another example. Now, a couple of the things that come up commonly with Google. Some people want to know about like making slides and using musical examples, right? I'll just pull up a blank slide presentation. One thing that's relatively easy, you know, as far as using Noteflight, people always like, you know, composing in a slide, there's a certain amount of space, but there's a few screenshots that are really, really easy, right? I mean, you can Command-Shift-4 screenshot and actually just grab a section of music here and then paste it right in a slide, right? It's really, really simple to do that. There's actually a trick that's Command-Shift-Control-4 that like copies the clipboard and lets you paste it. But that way you can easily resize it. You can do more complex compositions, right? So pretty easy to take screenshots of any little particular piece in notation and put it over. You know, also I'd encourage, you know, the use of slides to get students to learn to present the steps. So if you are doing that multi-step process, even have them, you know, screenshot a piece of what they did. They could also, I'll go back and, you know, paste the link. So teach them to go in and, you know, add text and say maybe view. I'm not a fan of things like click here, but of course, you can always just add a quick link to this, link it to the Noteflight score, and ta-da, now you have this idea. Let me just format this as centered, right? And you can have a slide presentation that shows an example with a hyperlink to view the entire thing in Noteflight. So I do like using slides for that example, and students can integrate this type of thing. The other thing Noteflight does allow is embedding scores. And I wanted to show this too, because especially for those that are making sites, this becomes really, really, really exciting. So I actually have too many windows open. Sorry, I'm clicking around. Let me go back. And I want to show how to embed something in a site. So one thing to make sure of when you're embedding is there's a site setting that you want to make sure is selected. And it's called make this site public. I'm glad I selected it. All this means, there's a question that came up. Read this real quick. Oh, so once you create an assignment in Google Classroom, it's assigned to that class. If you'd like to assign it to a subset of students, you'd have to make a class in Google that is that subset. But you can have, lots of classes in Google Classroom. So you can certainly create a class. You could create classes in Google just for project groups and use that for assignments. That public access link I just did, all that means is that anything shared publicly with the site can be viewed by people that are not logged in. Nobody can view your student information. No one can view your student scores. But I always mention that because when you create this site and you want to embed something for like a parent to see, you want to make sure that the permissions of the Noteflight score are set so the parent can view that. So I'll show you an example real quick. I'm going to go back in and just create something new in a site. I was going to get excited about it, so let's do this. Okay, so I think we're going to do it So very exciting stuff, right? We should definitely make this participant because that's all that matters, right? Okay, so now when you share this, right, you'll share this with anyone has access, and you want to make sure it's public score listings. That's how you give access, and it's view only. So once you do this, the embed icon now comes open. So right down here, you can embed this score. And so there's settings, and you could choose the height and width, right? So this is in pixels. I can tell you right now, it's set to 800 high because it's thinking of the page. We could change this, right? So we could make this a square. I'm actually going to make this 400, and I'm going to do something like, let's make this 600 by 400, just to be, it'll be wider than tall. You can also change the view in here. So we could do this. You can also do something like strip view, where Noteflight scrolls horizontally, which might be something. I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can preview this. So there's a little preview option. So this is what the embed looks like, a little section in white here. Actually, the embed looks like all the Noteflight controls. So I'll go ahead and go that. Let's just go back to page view for now, though. And then you could allow editing. You can hide the cursor. So you have different options. But let me just copy this code. So we'll select all, copy this code. Now let me go into a site, right? And really in sites, what you want to do here is you just want to essentially add the code. So in your site here, you have the ability to insert. So let's go down to here and let's find text embed. So URL, we're going to enter embed code. We're going to enter that little iframe that Noteflight put in. And it's going to say, is this what you see? Ta-da. And you can even stretch this in Google too. The cool thing is that even though, and I can center this. So I'm sorry, do that. Let me center this in my Google site. Now, one interesting thing here, I'm seeing all of these editor controls because I'm logged into Noteflight. When a viewer sees this, they're only going to see what's embedded, but they can play in all of that. So when I publish this, or essentially preview it, right? Let's actually just preview what this could be. Let's go ahead and publish it, right? So when I go to preview this site, right, you'll notice that Noteflight will show up directly embedded, which you can play. So students can create sites and create their own materials embedded right in Noteflight, which is pretty cool. And if you saw the last webinar and you saw the ability to integrate with YouTube, if you have a YouTube video integrated, it will play as well. So you can create an embedded version of Noteflight in your Google site that demonstrates a performance with the YouTube video all embedded in that Noteflight frame. So, and of course, it's scrollable and everything's in there. That's a great option for more advanced projects. And again, this could also be, a sound check score, and a certain this could be the ability to share the results of your performance. This could be recorded audio. So if I recorded this in Noteflight, you could click and hear me playing this musical example. So there's lots of options here, ways to get slides involved, ways to get sites involved, ways to assign things in Noteflight, whether it's a Noteflight composition, close this out, whether it's a sound check score, right? No matter what it is, you'll have the ability to get that in. And I know we talked earlier, so here's an example of a essential elements method piece. And if you want to share this or create Google assignment as sound check, you could totally do this. Same process. You can go in, assign it to your class, give different levels. If it's beginners, you can try to say just get a 60% score goal. We'll make the assessment easy. We'll give you 2 attempts, or maybe just give 1 limited attempt. Like, I need you to try it until you get to a 60, or maybe until you get to a 70, right? You can title this EE12, Essential Elements number 12. In this case, oops, hit the wrong thing. I would definitely do my beginning band. Let's give this to my woodwinds. And I'll go ahead and create this assignment. This will show up. The student will go in. They'll select their part. So the student will say, I'm going to play the oboe. Ta-da, there's the oboe part. And they can record, get their assessment, and they'll turn it in right to the teacher. So that's really most of the demo today. I just want to also point out that, we've talked about it in other webinars, but we do have all of these content libraries as well. So again, anything in the Noteflight libraries can be used to perform or create an assignment. So if you want to grab a choir piece or a band piece or a pop song, I mean, I get really excited about the multi-step activities, right? So if I want to go in and take a whole new world, or ain't no mountain high enough, right? I can go in, assign this to my students, have them make a short arrangement out of this, add a desk camp part, have another student record it, assess it with sound check, turn it into Google Classroom. I mean, there's so many, like, I'd say infinite. I'm no mathematician, but I would argue there's infinite possibilities here of how you can use content and performance and composition and get them all involved. And remember, it's great to get multiple students involved. So because when you integrate with Google, you might have your whole school. Think about your seniors, the freshmen trying to compose things for the seniors, or the seniors writing exercises for the freshmen, or having students, a senior play something, play the freshman's composition as a recording, and they can put it on their site for their portfolio. All of these things come together in a really, really awesome way. So just know that all of these tools are available, fully integrated with Google, and it's really easy to set up and really easy to manage as you go. Again, back to just the management. I've synced these classes. I've got these students in. I've got a beginning band class, beginning woodwinds. They now have access. I can go in to my classes and find my beginning woodwind right in here, and there they are. And I can say, you know what, I want to make sure they have access to content. Let me add libraries. Everyone has library access. Let me add sound check. Everyone's going to have sound check access. And the reason we do this is we totally know that a lot of school districts will use a Google site for K-12. And so you might have students, some students using libraries, some sound check, but notice you can add it at the class level with just one click. And if you need to remove a student, look, you can just remove with a click, and it's pretty simple. It'll remove that element. And of course, you can add it back on individually or with the whole class, right? You can do the same with other teachers. There's only one teacher in the class right now, which is me, but really simple to do all this member management. So make sure that when you do use SoundCheck or content libraries that you remember to add these for your students, because these are separate add-ons, and so it's important that you manage, who has access. You can also change access, right? So if you need a semester to be able to swap out, you can go and remove everyone's library access, and that increases your available library seats, and then you can go into a different class and give access to that class now. So maybe I just want to trade my woodwinds for my brass, and I want to now go in and manage libraries for my brass. I can do this. So again, I'm swapping out access at the class level really, really quickly. If you're currently using Google Classroom and Noteflight and loving it, thank you. If you want to try a free trial, just go to noteflight.com/learn, sign up for that free trial, and you'll have access to join on Noteflight, and you'll have 60 days. You can set up your site. if you have multiple schools in the same district, think about creating a Google site for the district, because that way all the teachers will be in the same place and teachers can share materials with them as well, which is really, really great. So if a teacher creates scale exercises, one creates sight reading exercises, it's really easy for those teachers to go ahead and share that material with each other, copy, and have access in the same site. Otherwise, everyone would be in their own site. Great question just came in about video. We have teachers. So, I mean, Screencastify is made with a Google plugin, so that's probably the best option if you're using Google Chrome. Loom works just as well. And in a lot of cases, I know that teachers will have students do a Screencastify recording of themselves playing with their video, so teachers can see the performance and have them turn in that screencast link or Loom link. Both are, I've seen it effective both ways. Another way I've seen it is I've seen that teachers, when you go to grade students, you'll just quickly turn on Loom or turn on Screencastify and talk to your students while you're looking at their assignment and send them that link, which can also be very helpful. So either one is fine, and I've seen both used quite effectively. Again, any other questions, info@noteflight.com is your email, and noteflight.com/learn is the page with all the information that you need. Thank you for attending. Thank you for watching if you're watching the recording later. And I wish you all the most productive and safe fall semester. Thank you so much.